And welcome back to another exciting Blender tutorial. Today we're going to be going further with our Blade Runner scene, making some weather action happen. Let's get started. All right, welcome back. Thanks again for watching. Really appreciate all the support and encouragement. Everyone's been just giving me through the comments and just letting me know. The feedback has been really good, and it seems like people are really into this longer format, and the more kind of intermediate style tutorial has been really good. Don't want to leave the beginners behind though, so feel free to keep dropping questions in the comments and just let me know how you're tracking with it, and I'll just keep trying to explain things as clearly as I can. So in this episode, we're going to be taking a look at how to make a weather system without using volumetrics. So this first part, we're going to be going through making the clouds and building a system of nodes that are going to help to control the way that cloud looks and without having to use any kind of like fully volumetric system. So it's going to be really, really cool. The next part two of this particular little weather group of episodes, we're going to be going into making the rain and getting that to look right and have that animate and go through our scene. So by the time we finish the two parts, we're going to have a full weather system of clouds, fog, rain, all basically coming from a shader that just sits on a plane in 3D space. So pretty exciting stuff. You're going to have a lot of really deep concepts, a lot of cool stuff that you can run with, hopefully in your own projects from this. Hope you find it helpful. Let's get into it. We're going to be creating a technique where what we're going to do is use a couple of different flat planes in our environment to create the illusion of volumetric cloud and also rain. Now, just as a start, I'll just say right up front, two things. One is this is going to be complicated, and the other thing is it's going to slow down the scene. So render times are really going to tank. So if you don't have the fastest machine, I'd follow along with this one. You're going to learn an absolute ton, but you may not want to go over the top with this effect. And I'll talk a bit about why and what you can do as an alternative. So I've done a few things to the scene just to kind of update it off camera, just to not waste time here. So let me just get you up to speed real quick. The first thing was I was getting a lot of cars intersecting the wall and intersecting the platform. You might be seeing the same thing in yours. So what I did was identified the main problem, which was this group that was flying through right here. And this spline was way too close to this wall. So I edited the points of the spline and I brought it out a little bit on the y-axis this way. So now the cars are coming by much further. And then what I did was I went in and I changed the size of my platform. So I had this bit was really big and it was like sticking way out into the road. And this bit was really tall. So I scaled it back and just kind of shrunk it down a little bit. So the platform is not as large. So now nothing's intersecting. Now, every time I made changes to the particle system, I made sure that I went over to my particle and found the cache, and I would delete all bakes, and then I'd bake all dynamics. And that just every time, just to make sure you've got an accurate representation of your particle system. Otherwise, you're going to get cars like kind of upside down randomly or kind of going in the wrong direction, and it can confuse you if you're trying to get something just right. So tweak that till you get it set. The other thing was I tweaked the lights on the buildings a little bit. So I took out that blue color and I added in more of an orange just to kind of, echo the orange of our landing platform hologram. So these are all kind of looking a bit more orange, which is nice. The other thing I did was with our hologram thing that glows here, I ended up removing all those keyframes that we made where it was kind of flickering on. And I just got nervous about that. And I thought, look, that's going to be one of those things that's going to come back to bite me in the render. It's not going to look right. So I just did a gradual fade from 0 to the level of transparency we had on it. So I think that's just going to be a much safer, better route. So those are the things that changed. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we're going to create a giant plane in our scene. So I'm going to hit Shift-A, create a plane. I'm going to scale it up and rotate it on the Y 90. And then we're going to scale it on the Y and just kind of fill the scene like this. Okay. And and I'll grab it up on the Z a little bit. And the idea is to just fill the whole view so that as we fly through the scene, this thing fills the camera. Okay. Now, this particular one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it forward on the X-axis here so that it's real close to where our camera is. Now, our camera is somewhere. I think we've turned those off so that we can't see them. Yep. right, there's our camera. So I'm going to bring this thing right up to our camera, and there's a reason for that. Actually, no, not yet. We're going to start with it back. Yeah, I just remembered. I got to do it a little differently. Okay. Yeah, this should be good. Okay. Now let's set up our organization for this. Okay, because of course our project's getting bigger. We got to make sure we don't get lost. So I'm going to create a new collection, and I'm going to call this one weather. And I'm going to take our plane here, and to find it, I'm going to hit the full stop key, which will take us right to it. I'm going to drag our plane into weather. There we go. And I'll drop that out. Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to call this plane cloud layer. And we're going to go down to our materials, and we're going to create a new material. We're going to call this one clouds. Okay. Now what we want to do is go ahead and get our view set up so that we can start working in our shader editor. So let's switch over to the shader editor. And I'm actually going to just full screen it for a minute. And I'm going to get rid of my timeline for now, just to kind of make this as big as possible for everybody to see. And I will try my best to remember to stay zoomed in so that it's nice and big. Okay, we have a couple of things we want to try and accomplish with this. So to map out what we want to achieve, I want to create some layout nodes and just label them so I can think about all the different aspects of what I want this shader to do. But as a big picture, what we want it to do is a couple of different things. We want it to, first of all, look like clouds. We then want it to be transparent, so to be kind of see-through, so that we've got parts of the cloud that are maybe more dense than others, and we want to be able to see the scene behind it because we want a fake atmosphere. The other thing is we want to make sure that whenever our plane is intersecting geometry, we don't have a hard edge where it meets the geometry. And if that doesn't quite make sense to you yet, it'll make sense when I start to do that bit. But we want to have it basically have a fade effect where the cloud fades away the closer it gets to any kind of geometry, so that we get this nice gradual cloud that disappears as it gets close to objects. So we never actually can tell where the plane intersects anything. The next thing we want to do is we want to have a function that's working within our shader that is able to fade the cloud away as the camera gets closer to it. And the idea with that is that, we're never going to have a moment where the cloud is really, really big in frame and then suddenly disappears because the camera's just passed through the plane and we're now on the other side. We want this to be like atmosphere so that it's slowly fading away as we're drifting through it. Okay, so those are our three main goals. And then for our rain shader, we're going to use all that stuff plus just a different kind of texture to the cloud texture. We want to create sort of an animated rain effect, but we want it to behave the same way. So disappear as it gets close to geometry, and also disappears as the camera gets close to it. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to use the layout, the frame node in the layout, just to help us get organized. Okay. I'm going to drag this out, and you can change the name of the frame nodes over here. So we're going to call this one the base cloud noise. Now I always get confused and type it first in name usually, and label is actually the one that changes the name here. We're going to change its color just to make it nice and clear. We're going to do maybe like a stormy cloud color. So we want to create a base cloud noise. Then what we want to create is the system that will deal with when we're close to geometry. So let's label that one geo intersection fade, okay? And we'll label this one a different color. Let's go like maybe an orange. So this will be our system for checking if we're close to geometry. And then our third one is going to be right here, which is the camera proximity. I totally just spelled that wrong, didn't I? Proximity, is it there EY maybe? Or I was joking on the comments. Somebody needs to make a spelling tutorial for 3D artists. I would watch it. I clearly need it. All right, we'll change the color. Go for red. All right, so these are our three systems we're gonna make. And then we're gonna pipe all that in to here. Okay, let's start off. Oh yeah, and we also wanna have the color for our cloud system. I'll go ahead and get that in. We're just going to use a color ramp node for that. Okay. You excited? You pumped? This is going to be fun. I hope it will. I hope you're excited. I am. I don't get to do this kind of like super in-depth, crazy stuff all the time. I'm going to flip this around, I think. And we will mess with this a bit more. I'll bring up the contrast on a little bit because we're going to need it to see, the difference in our shader. Okay, I'm going to plug this into our base color. And off we go. All right, let's make the cloud noise first. I'm going to go ahead and get our view up so that we can see. I might try doing it over here. So 3D viewport, and I'll get rid of the things on the side with N and T, and we'll turn off all of our controls and things. And I'll just zoom this right in so we've got a really clear view of what we're looking at. And for this beginning bit, I think I'll just use the viewport shader. And no, it's not working. All right, what we might do then is if you right click on weather on our collection, you can actually go visibility and isolate. And what that does is it just automatically hides everything. You see the eyes have shut. And it's just a quick way to just isolate something. Good little tip. And now it should work. Yep, there we go. Now it's working. So the reason why I was going all white and weird was just, I think it's a memory problem where I just have too much going on, possibly. Or maybe it was rendering and I didn't give it time to finish. I don't know. Anyways, we've got it now. All right. Let's start off with our base cloud noise. We're going to use, we're going to generate some noise. So let's go with the texture. We're going to go straight up with the noise texture. Usually I use Voronoi. Oh yeah, one thing with the nodes is when you create a node and put it over these things, they snap to it like that. So now these things are connected. But as we add more nodes, it'll get larger in size. I'm going to switch this to 4D because that's going to give us this W control, which helps us to create sort of some more irregularities in it. Yeah, I don't know how people learn English, by the way. Just like, what a language. Wow. Okay, then let's get a mapping node. You can't really see it yet, or even I could probably scale this down. Yeah, you can see there. This is where it's helpful using the, what's it called? The viewport rendering. You can actually see it live. If I go 0.01, is that going to give us enough contrast? No, not yet. Need to go bigger? Ah, yeah, it's bigger. Sorry, there you go. Now you can see it. All right, so let's go ahead and grab a mapping node and pop that. Can I get it in there? Yeah, there we go. And I'll put the vector into vector. And then what we want to do is not the usual. So usually, we go for texture coordinate and then pop that in. We're going to do something different. We're going to grab a geometry node. Geometry node is great because it basically gives you information about the geometry of the object that the shader is on. And we want to do a cool effect where whenever this thing's moving through 3D space, because we want to make a couple of these and position them, we want the noise to change based on where it's at so that we've got different noise patterns on each one. And we can do that by using the position of the geometry. Because if we move them around, then we're putting them in different positions, so this value is going to be different, and that's going to help our vector to change. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this sorted. I think now that we've plugged all that in, the scale is now reversed, so we want to go smaller. Yeah, there it is. All right, so let's go. We're going to go tiny on this. We'll try something like 0.3. And then if you see, I've moved my W up, and I might just make this white for now, just so you can really see it. And yeah, so the W you can see like kind of adds a bit more noise and texture to this thing, which is cool. So let's try like 7. Let's see. And then detail, we can increase the detail. You can see the difference there. So we're just going to get a bit more noise detail in it. So try 5. Distortion, I'm going to leave alone. Distortion kind of gives it this water effect, right? So you can use that to kind of make ripples and stuff, sort of make it look like the surface of water. All right, great. So we have this noisy cloud looking thing. And what's cool about it is if I grab my plane now, there we go. So we've got it grabbed. If I grab it on the x-axis and I move it, you're going to see that those clouds are now shifting around as it moves on the x-axis, which is what we wanted to do with this. Now, if I grab it on the y, it's not actually doing anything, and same with the z. So up and down, left and right, it's not going to change it, but moving forward and backward is. So that's really cool. Okay, great. We've got our base cloud noise, making good progress. And we've got our color. That's good. So now we need to get our geo intersection fade. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add something to this. Can we add the city? Yeah. All right, cool. Now we've got something we can work with. Although one note, transparency is not going to be visible in the shader view, this preview mode. Same with EV. This kind of like Oh no, Eevee probably can do it. I'm not actually sure, but we're going to need to switch over to cycles to really get this view to start to work. What we want to do is we're trying to get rid of the effect that it has now where you can tell exactly where it starts and stops. So if I drop this alpha down, the alpha channel, by the way, if you're not familiar with alpha channels, the basic short explanation is it's transparency. So whatever in an alpha channel is white is fully opaque. Whatever is black is fully transparent, so fully see-through. And you can use that then and pipe in black and white images into this to set areas of your texture that are going to be transparent and areas that are going to be solid. If we drop the whole alpha down universally like we are now, it just makes the whole thing transparent at the same level all over the place. Like if I was to grab this though and like pipe it into our alpha, for example, it would be transparent more in some places than it is in others because it's using this noise, which you can't really see very well, but that's the idea. So what we can see here is you can tell exactly where this thing intersects the ground, okay? Especially as we get closer, it's going to be more and more apparent. And that's just not the effect we want. We want to be able to sell this as a volume, so clouds of smoke that kind of drift into the distance. So in order to do that, one of the things is our geo intersection fade. Now there's a node here we're going to add called the Ambient Occlusion node. It's only available in cycles, doesn't work in Eevee. And ambient occlusion, again, if you're not familiar, when two pieces of geometry intersect, this was an old rendering trick that we used to use where it would darken darken an area on the shader where you had geometry that was close to it. So for example, in the corners of a room. So at the floor where the floor met the wall, you would have this dark crease that would happen at that intersection point. And it was a great way of faking just kind of a real look before we had global illumination in our renderers. And it was a really good tool. It's still really good, still great for making stuff, still used a lot in games. But the gist of what it's doing is it's saying, okay, is there something nearby? Is there any geometry nearby? If so, I'm going to shade myself a bit darker or a bit lighter based on your color. So we can use that to actually determine, okay, well, when is some geometry close to our plane? So what we want to do is grab a color ramp. And I'll just drop it on here. We're going to pipe the ambient occlusion into that. You could probably pipe the color into. It doesn't probably matter. I'm just using that, whatever. And let's just feed this directly into our alpha channel. All right, so we're back now to using 0 and 1 as the values of our alpha channel. So that's how we lost all that transparency. I'm just going to drag this up to the point where you can see it. Okay, yeah, there we go. So we can kind of see a little bit now. It looks like this sort of fog is lifting off the ground. Okay, so what we're telling the renderer is, okay, if there's geometry nearby, then I want you to shade it black. If there's no geometry nearby, or the further we get away from geometry, shade it more and more white. And so then we're piping in that black and white information into the alpha. So wherever we have black, it's 0 off, or where we have white, it's full opaqueness. So that's how we're getting transparent when we get close. All right, so, but we can also change things like the distance. So if I switch this to like 5, it's going to make it a whole lot bigger. Now the scale of it is larger. The distance is over a greater scale, so that this gradient is now spread over a larger space. And you can see now, you can't tell where this plane is intersecting our geometry, even if we zoom right in. And it looks like a volume of cloud that goes into the distance. So this is a pretty cool trick. Now, one thing we want is we want to be able to have a couple of layers of these, and we want to be able to see through them. So we actually want a base transparency. Now we could change this value. We could drop this one down to like, I don't know, less than 1, so like 0.2, 0.3, something like that. And that's actually going to achieve what we want through it. So I might just keep it like that for now. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to jump out, and I'm just going to grab our object, and we're going to Shift D and grab this on the X, Shift D, grab it on the X, and scale it up. So now we've got a couple of these things, because the alphas are going to all build up on top of each other. So we want to be able to see that effect and see how well it's working. So I'm going to darken this a little bit, kind of get the color right. Don't want this, bright and happy cloud. You're welcome to, go full orange like we originally planned. But as I pointed out earlier, I'm not doing it. Can't make me. All right. I might keep it like that. It's kind of nice and stormy. Now we got that working. I want to take a look at the next thing. So our camera proximity fade. And I'll just move this out of the way. One thing we can use to help keep everything organized as well is we can go to Layout and Reroute node, drop that little dot down, and now we can pipe that there and then pipe that back to the alpha. And this is just a great little thing for organizing. Okay, camera proximity fade. This is a bit of a doozy, but we can do it. There is a node called camera data. Camera data gives us data about our camera. And one of those things is view distance, which is the distance of our camera from the object that this material is on. Okay. What we want to do is take this and use it to contribute to our alpha so that as the closer the camera gets, the more it fades away. Okay. We're going to need some stuff to make that work. We're going to use, let's first grab a color ramp. Grab that color ramp, pipe our view distance into the factor. We could pipe it into the emission, and that's going to help us a little bit. And I'll even unplug this from the alpha so we can just focus on what we're looking at. And I'll crank it all the way up. And I'm just going to find a frame. Get out of that, and I'm going to find a frame where we intersect. Let's see if we've got, all right, so we're really close. All right, so this frame, we're like right on it. I'll come back maybe 2 frames. All right, let's go back to rendered. Let's see what happens. Okay, can you see it's getting darker? Closer I get to it, and then we pop through to the other side, okay? So we can see that something's happening. It's working, right? It's white when we're far away, so it's on this end of the color ramp when we're far away, and as we're getting closer, it's getting closer to this. Now, if we drag this up, and we drag this down, and I'll just pull back a bit too. I'll even hit Control-Alt-B just to undo our close view. All right, now let's move forward again on the timeline. Okay, boom, there you go. So you can see now we've suddenly gotten close enough to trigger this color ramp the way we've done it. We've triggered the emission. So it's emitting now full white out here, but right here it's emitting black. And the reason why it's a circle is because this bit is closer to the camera than this bit because it's a plane and the camera is a small object and it's flying in. So as we get closer, this circle is going to expand. So if I'll zoom out so we can see the entire frame and you can see the effect there. So it's like a, Looney Tunes. Man, I loved the Looney Tunes. I used to watch them all the time back in the day when I was a wee whippersnapper with just the glint of blender in me eye. Okay, so yeah, so it's doing something, but it's not doing what we want really. If I was to plug this into the alpha channel, you're gonna see it's like we've kind of like pulled away this just circle. It's gonna be really noticeable. So even if we fade this out, it's still gonna be kind of noticeable. And you may not think so at this point. I know it's really small and hard to see at this size, but when you're moving quickly, this is only happening over like 4 frames. And what the effect that's going to be is it's like all of a sudden you're going to see this circle, I think. It's just going to quickly expand out. It's going to kill the effect. So what we need to do is take this and we need to have it last over a longer period of time. So we need to have the fade start sooner. In order to solve this, I had to full on brute force it. So what I mean by that is I tried a whole bunch of things and spent way too much time and found a solution. Just for you guys. This is my gift to you, the map range node. This map range node is sort of like a dark art. I wish I could explain it better. It confuses the heck out of me. I've tried so many times to understand exactly how it works. It seems simple enough when I look at this from min, from max to min to max. I mean, yeah, that should work. But when it starts to interact with stuff, the results you get are crazy. I would love a debug function in Cycles to be able to plug into something and go, hey, what's the number that this thing's generating? So if anyone knows how to do that, please tell me. Because, man, I just would kill for that. It'd be so good just to be able to see in the console or something, hey, what's the view distance number? Oh, it's 0.39, or is it 5,600? I've got no idea. Anyways. It's my little complaint for the day. Okay, so what we want to do is right here, the from max. So we want to map this range from 0 to 1. We're going to map it to 0 to 1, but we want to change the 2 max to something larger. So let's go with 5. Okay. So now it's basically saying 0 to 5 is like a ratio, right? So if you imagine, this is 0 to 5. All the values of view distance are mapped from that range, right? And now we're saying, okay, we want to take that, and now we want to take it not 0 to 5, we want to take it down to 0 to 1. So it's like 5 times smaller, right? So let's say it's like that. So now it's taken this huge range of values and it's mapped it down to this range, okay? And then we're using that in the same system. So it's sort of like, I don't know. Like I said, trying to explain this has just done my head in. I'm not going to attempt it anymore. I'll just tell you what it does. The effect that I found is that it gives us more frames of time by which this transition happens. So now we can start all the way back here at like frame 190, 195 is where it's starting. I'll zoom in a bit so we can actually see it. Yep, there we go. So it's starting to go transparent. I might even like pump that up to 10. And jump back again. So yeah, okay, so like 180. So we're already starting to go transparent from 186, 185, 189. So it's just taking a lot more frames to fade out. And so it's a much slower, gradual effect. And that's going to give us exactly what we want. What we want to do now is combine that with all this, okay? But I want to just build in a little bit of control for us, okay? So right now what we're doing is we're setting our maximum transparency with this number right here. So our maximum transparency, it only ever gets up to 0.355, okay? Because remember, if we pump this in, it's our alpha, 0, 0.355, it's just mapping those values into the alpha channel. So I'm going to create a new node here called a value node. And this just lets me put in any value I want. So let's put in 0.3. Or 3.5, whatever we had, as that color was 3.55, wasn't it? Let's keep it exact. Now, if I make this one white now, so now we're just dealing with black or 0 and 1. What I can do is I can actually now take these values and subtract them out from this value, so that we've got our base value of 0.355, and then I want to subtract wherever I've got geometry that's nearby, and then pipe that in. So in order to do that, we're going to have to flip these as well, okay? So stay with me. It's because this is 0 and this is 1. So it works really well as an alpha channel because we've got transparent when we're close to geometry. We've got full white when or full 1, full opaque when we're away from geometry. But we want to now use these numbers as values to subtract from our main one. So we want to flip it. So when we're close to geometry, we want to be 1. So we're taking away more and more and more from this. When we're far away, we want it to be black. We want to take away less and less. So 3.55 becomes the most opaque value that we have. So we need to be subtracting 0 from it when we're far away. I hope that made sense. So I'm going to flip these like that. And I'm going to create a math node. And I'm going to take the value and I will pop it into, which one? That one? Yeah, because we're going to take 355 and subtract, this from it. And I'm going to take that to the second one. I'm going to switch this to subtract. I'm going to clamp it because I don't want to go negative because alphas don't really like negative numbers. And then I can just stick that right there. And now it's the same thing as what we had before, but we're able to control the base value of, what's our maximum transparency from right here, as opposed to in the color. And this we're going to need in a second. So I'll pop this back down to, let's try 0.3. All right. Now, next thing is we want to subtract this value from, I'll pop this in here just for clarity. And we'll keep this kind of off on its own. And so now we need to take this and we need to subtract this from this. So of course now we got to do the same thing. So this is 0 if we are close to the camera and white if we're far away, but we want to be subtracting stuff from this. So we need the positive number, not the 0. We need the values to be subtracted. So When we are close to the object, we want it to be white. And when we're far away, we want it to be black. Again, you don't have to necessarily like know all this or be able to see it clearly when you're building this, because like, oops, if you're not, if you don't see it clearly, like you build it and then it's like, it's just flipped and you can see it and you go, oh wait, that's flipped. I should reverse my color ramp. But just be aware that's something just to look out for. Okay. So we'll grab another math node and we'll pipe this one into the top. There you go. Subtract, clamp, and then pipe that in. All right, let's turn clamp off just in case. I'm not sure if it matters or not, but let's do that. And then for linear, I'm going to switch this to ease. I just found previously that that just gave us a nicer effect when it came to the gradual disappearing of when we got closer and closer. Okay, cool. So I'm going to turn this up a bit just so we can see it a little more. Now, one thing that we need to be aware that we're doing, if 8 is the maximum for our alpha channel, and we're taking a bit of stuff away from it. Let's say we come over here now, it's a little small. Let's say it's 0.5. We're now basically going, all right, if the camera is close to this thing, then get closer and closer to 1. So let's say we're right on top of it. It's like 0.9 or whatever. It's 1 even. That number is greater than what our base value is ever going to be, right? So we're actually going to be hitting the negatives a bit quicker if we're using 1 here. And the best thing to do is actually match it. So this number, if we matched it to whatever this is, so 0.8. So we could do that by just coming in here and typing 0.8, 0.8, 0.8. And now this value is the same as that value. And so now when it comes through, it's not gonna clip, basically. It's gonna be really gradual. So we're right on top of it. That's the moment when it's really transparent. So we can do it that way, but that's also kind of a pain to like constantly tweak this value and come over here and then manually enter it in. So in order to make this value always be what this is, we can actually just think about it mathematically and do it that way. So since this is a 1, I'll brighten this back up to full 1, 1 and 1. Multiply 1 by any number and you get that number, right? So this is our number, 0.8. If we want to multiply 1 by 0.8, we're going to get 0.8. So if we want to, and if we multiply 0.8 by black, 0, we're just going to get 0. So we can actually change the range of this color ramp by multiplying it with this number. So that'll just change the way this was working so that it's always capped. It starts at 0.8 and goes to 0. It scales it for us, basically. So if we grab another math node and we can pop that into this one and make it a multiply. Bring this back over. Bring this back in. So what we're going to do is multiply the value here by this value over here. And we can pipe this now into the base of our subtract. We can also put this subtract in our group because it's all part of the same thing. There we go. And let's get another reroute node. Yeah, reroute, boom. And just do one of these so it's a bit cleaner. There we go. All right. So now you get the idea, right? So we're coming in here, we're making it what we want it to be, and then we're subtracting this whole system from this whole system, and that's giving us our final alpha. Okay. Boom. Nailed it. Pretty crazy, pretty complicated, but really powerful and really, really useful. Now, all these values and stuff can be tweaked and tweaked and tweaked to get them right. You can really spend a lot of time with this. I'm going to drop this down. I'm going to go with 0.3. I don't want it to be too intense. And I'm going to try and layer up a few more of these things into the shot. So I'll just have a quick look at that. Now, the other thing is that all these guys, remember, they're affected by the Z value or the X value as they're moving through space. So what's really nice is if this cloud has a little bit of undulation to it, a little bit of movement. So what I want to do is add in let's grab the stuff. I'm going to add in a plane axis empty. And what I want to do is drag it into our weather group And with it selected, I'm gonna just shift select my other clouds. And then I'm gonna, in the viewport over here with my mouse pointer, hit Control P, object. And we're gonna parent all of those things to this empty, okay? Call this clouds. I'm gonna jump to the first frame of my animation, go right here to my control box, and I'm gonna hit I to set a keyframe. And then I'm gonna jump to the last frame. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna move these guys forward ever so slightly, just probably like that. That's all we need. And hit another I. Now, through the course of our animation, they're slowly moving forward. And another thing I can do as well is I can select these keyframes. You just click the top one, selecting all of them. And I'm pretty sure we can do that from here. Yeah, interpolation linear. So now what that means is they're not going to like slowly speed up and then slow down, which is the natural interpolation for keyframes in Blender. This is linear, so now it's just on, off. And that's what we want because we don't want it speeding up and slowing down with our camera. Okay. There we go. Now we could probably afford to have a few more of these. Now, because we've animated this empty, we can actually just duplicate these guys in here, and they're just going to inherit everything because they're going to be parented as well. So they're just going to add to all of the animation. There we go. So I got quite a few of them. And yeah, now we're getting this really nice effect. Let's just zoom out so you can see this. There we go. Now, as I said before, this is really going to tank your renders. So you can see already the path tracing is going very slowly now. I played around with a bunch of different ways of trying to speed that up. Oops, we've got one that's too small. And I couldn't find anything. It's just slow. So there might be some cool trick that we could do with this to speed everything up, but I haven't found it yet. Partly why it's so slow is that, this is fully global illuminated scene. So all of our light is actually going through these different alpha channel layers, creating shadow, creating color, creating just bounced light in our scene. And it's making it very alive. So it's just super cool. I mean, the good news is this is still faster and still better than using a volumetric. A volumetric takes a ton of samples in order to not look noisy. And we're able to get an image that isn't noisy with a lot less samples doing it this way. So it's a trade-off, but still cool. The effect looks great. With this tutorial, we're going to stop it here, but next time we're going to pick up where we left off, and we're going to continue to get this weather system to work using these nodes and really bring it all together. So I'm just excited to help you grasp that and learn it. And yeah, it's going to be really good. So please like and subscribe and ring the little bell to get notifications when the next one drops so we can finish out our weather. That'll come next Wednesday morning at 9 a.m., 8 a.m. roughly Sydney time if all goes well. That's going to be Tuesday night in North America if you're up on that end of the world. Yeah, thanks for watching, and I will catch you next time.